Raw backstage tension. Bloodline under pressure. Roman Reigns unstable? Usos versus Fatu rising. Bloodline breaking? What if the strongest family in WWE history didn't actually fall in the ring, but the real collapse started the moment the cameras stopped rolling? And what if the tension between Roman Reigns, Jey Uso, and Jacob Fatu wasn't just storyline smoke, but something that's been building way longer than anyone is ready to admit? Because after Raw went off air, things allegedly didn't just cool down, they shifted. And not in a good way. Now picture this for a second. The arena lights are dimming, fans are still buzzing, people are slowly heading out thinking the night is over, but backstage, the energy is completely different. That calm after Raw? Yeah, forget that. This is one of those situations where you can almost feel the silence being louder than the crowd was 5 minutes earlier. And the biggest question hanging over everything is simple: who's actually holding the bloodline together right now? Because from the outside, it still looks like Roman Reigns is Roman Reigns. The tribal chief. The guy who walks in and changes the temperature of the room without saying a word. But backstage stories coming out of this Raw suggest something a little different. Something a bit more unstable. Like the cracks aren't just visible anymore, they're starting to spread. Let's rewind it a bit. During Raw, you could already feel something was off. It wasn't loud. It wasn't obvious. But it was there. The way Jey Uso was reacting at certain moments, the way Jey Uso wasn't fully locking in the same way he used to when Roman speaks, it all looked like small things. The kind of things fans usually brush off as reading too much into it. But wrestling fans don't forget patterns. And when you start stacking those little moments together, you start seeing a picture that doesn't feel as solid as it used to. Then you add Jacob Fatu into the mix. Now that changes everything. Because Jacob Fatu doesn't walk into a storyline quietly. He doesn't do background energy. The man feels like a storm trying to decide where to land. And when someone like that is in the same orbit as Roman Reigns and the Usos, you either get dominance, or you get friction. No in between. And after Raw, that friction allegedly started showing its teeth. Backstage reports and chatter suggest there wasn't a big cinematic explosion or anything like that. No dramatic table flipping moment, no slow motion stare down with music in the background. Real backstage tension isn't like that. It's quieter. More uncomfortable. The kind where people talk less, not more. Roman Reigns, from what's being said, wasn't yelling. He didn't need to. That's the thing about him. Even when he's quiet, it feels like pressure. Like everyone else is waiting for him to decide what the mood is. But this time, the reaction around him wasn't as automatic. Jey Uso, for example, wasn't in his usual rhythm. Normally he feeds off Roman's presence in that familiar way, but here it felt more measured. Like he was choosing words in his head before even thinking about speaking them out loud. And that's not nothing. That's a shift. Jey Uso, on the other hand. Jey has been through too many emotional roller coasters in this whole Bloodline saga to just fall back into old patterns easily. And after Raw, the vibe reportedly wasn't brotherly comfort. It was more like distance disguised as professionalism. You know that awkward family dinner where everyone is polite but nobody actually looks at each other? Yeah, that kind of energy. And then there's Jacob Fatu. Now this is where things get interesting. Because Jacob Fatu isn't someone who just stands around waiting for instructions. He's not built for passive roles. So when you put him in a post-show backstage environment with Roman Reigns, the Usos, and all that layered history, it's like putting gasoline next to fire and asking it to behave. Nothing officially exploded, but sources and internal chatter suggest there was a very real moment of tension where conversations weren't flowing smoothly. More like short exchanges. Stares that lasted a second too long. That kind of thing where nobody raises their voice, but everyone hears what isn't being said. And honestly, sometimes that's worse than a fight. Because when people start holding back instead of letting it out, that's when things start building underneath the surface. Now here's the part fans are really debating online. Was this the beginning of the bloodline collapsing, or just another chapter in a long story where tension is the point? Because let's be real for a second. This faction has survived betrayals, power shifts, emotional breakdowns, family drama that felt more like a TV series than a wrestling storyline, and somehow it always finds a way to reassemble itself in a new form. But this feels different to some fans. Not because something massive happened, but because of what didn't happen. No clear unity moment. No strong post-match alignment. No visible "we're still together" energy. Just uncertainty. And uncertainty in the Bloodline universe is dangerous. Now imagine Roman Reigns standing there after Raw, surrounded by people who either used to follow him blindly or are still trying to figure out where they stand. That's not the same tribal chief situation from a year or two ago. This is more complicated. Because now, respect and hesitation are mixing in a way they didn't before. And Roman knows that. Even if he doesn't say it out loud. That's the thing about his character arc right now. He doesn't need to be told when something is off. He feels it. He reads rooms like most people read text messages. And if there's even a slight shift in loyalty or energy, it doesn't go unnoticed. Jimmy and Jey, meanwhile, are stuck in that complicated space where family loyalty and personal identity keep colliding. They've both been through enough emotional resets that nothing is simple anymore. And when you add Jacob Fatu into that already delicate mix, it's like introducing a wildcard into a system that already doesn't fully trust itself. So what happens next? That's the question hanging over everything. Because if this really is the beginning of a collapse, then we're not talking about a simple breakup. We're talking about the slow unraveling of something that WWE has built for years. A structure that has already broken and reformed multiple times, but maybe, just maybe, can't keep doing it forever. Or maybe it does. Because wrestling history tells us one thing very clearly. The bloodline doesn't fall easily. Even when it looks like it's gone, it somehow finds a way to come back in a different shape, a different hierarchy, a different kind of control. But this version? This version feels unpredictable. And fans are already split. Some are saying this is just planting seeds for another long-term story arc. Others are convinced this is the quiet beginning of a full internal break. And honestly, both sides have reasons to believe what they believe. Because nothing definitive happened after Raw, but something definitely shifted. And in wrestling, especially with a group like this, shifts are often more important than explosions. So now the question becomes, is Roman Reigns still holding the bloodline together, or is he standing in the middle of something?